What if the myths of ancient civilizations still whisper to us today? Not as forgotten echoes of the past, but as living stories that shape the way we dream, create, and even solve problems in the modern world. From the towering skyscrapers of our cities to the blockbuster films that captivate millions, the fingerprints of ancient legends are everywhere, hidden in plain sight, waiting to be uncovered. This is the heart of Mythic Chronicles, tales of ancient cultures that spark modern imagination. A journey into the timeless stories that continue to inspire, challenge, and connect us across the centuries. Think about the last time you watched a movie or read a book that left you breathless. Chances are it was rooted in something far older than you might realize. Take the epic battles of The Lord of the Rings, woven from the same threads as Norse sagas and Celtic folklore, or the futuristic cities of science fiction, often mirroring the grandeur of lost civilizations like Atlantis or Babylon. These aren't just coincidences, they're proof that the myths of old aren't just relics, they're blueprints for our creativity, guiding the way we imagine heroism, adventure, and even the future itself. So where do these stories come from, and why do they still hold such power over us? Over the course of this exploration, we'll retrace the steps of legendary heroes, decode symbols that have traveled through time, and uncover the hidden links between ancient wisdom and modern innovation. From the gods of Olympus to the tricksters of indigenous tales, these narratives are more than entertainment, they're a bridge between worlds, inviting us to see our own lives as part of a much grander tapestry. Ready to uncover the secrets, then let's begin. What makes a story stick in our minds for centuries while others fade away? The answer lies in the power of myth, not as mere fairy tales, but as the deep-rooted frameworks that shape how we see the world. Myths endure because they speak to something universal in the human experience, touching on fears, hopes, and questions that every generation faces. Joseph Campbell, the scholar who studied myths from every corner of the globe, called this the hero's journey, a timeless pattern found in everything from ancient epics to today's blockbusters. Think of Luke Skywalker leaving Tatooine or Frodo setting out from the Shire. Both follow the same arc as Odysseus or Gilgamesh, proving that the call to adventure, the trials, and the ultimate transformation are stories we never tire of hearing. But myths do more than entertain. They serve as cultural compasses, teaching us how to navigate life's biggest challenges. The Greek tale of Persephone's descent into the underworld, for example, isn't just about seasons changing. It's a story about loss, resilience, and renewal that still comforts those facing grief today. Similarly, the Norse legend of Ragnarok, with its cycle of destruction and rebirth, mirrors our own anxieties about the end of the world and the hope that follows. These stories give us a language for the unspoken, a way to make sense of chaos, and a reminder that even in darkness, there's the promise of dawn. Look closely, and you'll find these ancient patterns everywhere. The Lion King echoes the Egyptian myth of Osiris. Harry Potter borrows from Arthurian legends. Even the tech giants of Silicon Valley name their innovations after mythological figures: Amazon, Nike, Apollo. Why? Because myths hold a kind of magic, a resonance that feels both familiar and extraordinary. They remind us that the struggles of heroes and gods aren't so different from our own. And as we'll soon see, the myths of specific ancient cultures, from the Dreamtime stories of indigenous Australia to the epic poems of Mesopotamia, each offer their own unique keys to understanding the human spirit. Long before Homer sang of Achilles or the Bible told of Noah, the people of Mesopotamia were etching stories into clay, stories that would outlast empires. At the heart of these tales stands the Epic of Gilgamesh, humanity's oldest surviving epic, written over 4,000 years ago. This isn't just a relic, it's a mirror. Gilgamesh's quest for immortality, his grief over his friend Enkidu's death, his struggle to accept human limits, these themes feel as raw and real today as they did in ancient Europe. Sound familiar? It should. The bond between Gilgamesh and Enkidu echoes in modern friendships like Frodo and Sam, or even Buzz and Woody. And that haunting question, how do we live knowing we'll die, still fuels everything from superhero sagas to philosophical debates. But the Mesopotamians didn't just ponder life's big questions, they shaped the very language of myth. Take Ishtar, the fiery goddess of love and war, whose tantrums could shake the heavens. Her demand for Gilgamesh's affection and her wrath when rejected inspired later deities like Aphrodite and Venus. Then there's Marduk, the storm god who rose to rule Babylon, his victory over chaos mirrored in Zeus's battles with the Titans. These aren't just coincidences, they're proof of a storytelling DNA passed down through cultures, and here's the thrilling part, we've touched the evidence. Archaeologists uncovered Uruk's massive walls, the same ones Gilgamesh boasted of building, confirming the epic's roots in real places. Cuneiform tablets detailing flood myths predating Noah were found in Nineveh's ruins, showing how these stories traveled and transformed. It's as if the Mesopotamians left us a puzzle, their myths whispering across millennia. This is how we made sense of the world. Now it's your turn. Speaking of puzzles, no civilization wove mystery and majesty quite like the Egyptians. But that's a tale for another moment, one involving pyramids, cosmic battles, and a god who pieced himself back together. If Mesopotamia gave us the first epic hero, Egypt gifted humanity something even more profound, the promise of life after death. At the center of this belief stands Osiris, the god murdered by his jealous brother Set, dismembered, and miraculously reborn through the love of his wife Isis. This isn't just a tale of betrayal and magic, it's the blueprint for countless stories where good triumphs over evil, where love defies death itself. Sound like a plot you've heard before, from The Mummy to The Lion King. Osiris's resurrection echoes wherever we tell stories of renewal. Even the idea of a final judgment, where Osiris weighs hearts against the feather of truth, finds its way into modern courtroom dramas and superhero sagas where justice must be measured, not just delivered. But the Egyptians didn't stop there. They crafted the Book of the Dead, a guidebook for the soul's journey through the afterlife. Think of it as an ancient self-help manual, filled with spells to navigate challenges, much like today's mindfulness practices or survival guides. The negative confessions, where the dead declare their innocence, I have not stolen, I have not lied, mirror modern ethics, proof that the struggle to live virtuously isn't a new idea. Even the concept of a second death in the underworld, where souls face oblivion if they fail, feels eerily like our own fears of being forgotten. Then there are the pyramids, monuments so iconic they've become shorthand for mystery. Hollywood can't resist their allure, spinning tales of cursed tombs and hidden treasures. Yet the real magic lies in how these structures embody the Egyptians' obsession with eternity. Each stone was a prayer in granite, a ladder to the stars, and while pharaohs hoped to join the gods, today's architects mimic their ambition, designing skyscrapers that scrape the heavens. But Egypt's myths weren't all grandeur. The Contentions of Horus and Set, a brutal feud over Osiris's throne, reads like a political thriller. Set, the god of chaos, uses every trick, even seduction, to undermine Horus, while the young heir fights to reclaim his birthright. Behind the divine drama, scholars see reflections of real power struggles between ancient kingdoms. It's a reminder that myths often wear two masks, one for the gods, one for the humans who told their stories. Now, as we turn from the Nile's whispers to the thunder of Olympus, prepare to meet gods who feel startlingly human, flawed, passionate, and endlessly inventive. Their tales won't just dazzle you, they'll make you wonder how much of their world still lives in ours. From the thunderbolts of Zeus to Athena's strategic brilliance, Greek myths didn't just survive, they reinvented themselves for every generation. Look at any Marvel movie and you'll spot Olympus's fingerprints. Thor's godly struggles mirror Hercules' labors, while Loki's trickery echoes Hermes' mischievous charm. Even Wonder Woman, raised on the island of Themyscira, draws straight from Amazonian legends. But it's not just superheroes. Nike, the brand that dominates sports, takes its name and swoosh logo from the winged goddess of victory, proof that these ancient symbols still sell dreams. Then there's the Trojan War, a story so versatile it shapes everything from spy thrillers to diplomatic jargon. When politicians warn of Trojan horse threats, they're invoking that same wooden deception from 3,000 years ago. Hollywood can't resist either. Films like Troy and Helen of Troy repackage the epic's themes of love, honor, and hubris for modern audiences. But dig deeper, and you'll find scholars using the Iliad to explain battlefield psychology, or tech experts comparing cybersecurity breaches to Greeks sneaking past digital walls. The Trojan War isn't history, it's a lens for understanding human conflict, past and present. Freud famously turned Greek tragedy into psychology, naming the Oedipus complex after the king who unknowingly fulfilled his horrific fate. That idea of destiny we can't escape still haunts our stories, from Star Wars to Breaking Bad. Even Athena, goddess of wisdom, finds new life in feminist retellings like Circe or The Song of Achilles, where silenced characters finally speak. These aren't just adaptations, they're conversations across time, asking, who gets to be the hero, who suffers in the shadows? Yet for all their grandeur, Greek myths resonate because they're deeply human. Zeus's infidelities, Hera's jealousy, Prometheus's defiance, these flaws make the gods relatable. Modern retellings lean into that, showing us gods who bleed, heroes who fail, and monsters who mourn. It's why we keep returning to them, whether in video games like Hades or novels that reimagine Persephone's underworld as a feminist awakening. But Greece isn't the only culture whose myths still roar. Far to the north, where ice meets fire, the Norse sagas wait with their own tales of fate, fury, and resilient stories that have fueled everything from Wagner's operas to Thor's latest cinematic adventure. And trust me, their legacy is just as explosive. If the Greek gods feel like old friends, the Norse pantheon arrives like a storm, wild, untamed, and crackling with raw energy. At first glance, Marvel's Thor seems worlds apart from his ancient counterpart. One cracks jokes in Midtown Manhattan, the other guarded the sacred world tree Yggdrasil. But dig deeper and the threads connect. The Thor of the Poetic Edda wasn't just a hammer-wielding brute, he was a protector, battling frost giants to keep the cosmos in balance. Sound familiar? It's the same heroism that drives Chris Hemsworth's Avenger, proving some archetypes never fade, they just trade mead halls for multiplexes. Then there's Loki, the trickster whose chaos once sparked laughter and dread in equal measure. Norse poets called him the Sly One, a shapeshifter who could be both ally and villain, sometimes in the same tale. Marvel's Loki captures that duality perfectly, mirroring the original's unpredictability, but the myths go darker. In one haunting verse from the Poetic Edda, Loki taunts the gods at a feast, foreshadowing his role in Ragnarok, the doom of the gods. That scene could have been lifted straight from a modern thriller, with Loki as the charismatic antagonist who knows too much, and Ragnarok itself, the apocalyptic battle where gods, giants, and monsters clash in a final, fiery reckoning, has found eerie new life in our age of climate anxiety. When Heimdall's horn signals the beginning of the end, and the serpent Jörmungandr rises from the sea, it's hard not to think of melting ice caps and superstorms. Filmmakers and writers lean into this, from Thor, Ragnarok's psychedelic destruction to video games like God of War, where Kratos walks a world steeped in Norse eschatology. The message, even in collapse there's renewal. The myths promise a world reborn after Ragnarok, a hope that resonates deeply in an era of environmental crisis. But Norse magic isn't just about doom, it's in the details. Take runes, those angular symbols Vikings carved into stone and wood. Far from mere letters, they were believed to hold power, capable of healing, cursing, or glimpsing the future. Games like Skyrim and Assassin's Creed Valhalla weave runes into their lore, letting players tap into that ancient mystique. And Valkyries, the warrior women who chose the slain for Odin's Hall. They've soared from myth to feminist icons, inspiring everything from operas to the fierce female fighters of For Honor. Yet for all their modern glitz, the old verses still shimmer. Listen to this snippet from the Poetic Edda. The sun turns black, earth sinks in the sea, the bright stars vanish from the sky. It's poetry as stark and gripping as any dystopian novel, proof that the Norse didn't just tell stories, they forged visions. And speaking of visions, wait until you hear the Celts take on the otherworld, where fairy mounds hold portals to realms stranger than any Asgard. While the Norse saw destiny written in runes, the Celts heard whispers in the wind, their myths woven into the very landscape. Ancient druids didn't just worship nature, they spoke its language, reading omens in the flight of birds and the rustle of oak leaves. Today, that deep reverence echoes in modern environmental movements. When protesters chain themselves to trees or activists invoke Mother Earth, they're channeling the same spirit that once sacred groves where a single felled tree could mean exile or worse. The Celtic belief that rivers held goddesses and mountains were giants sleeping under stone. It's alive in campaigns to grant legal personhood to rivers like New Zealand's Wanganui, recognized as an ancestor by the Maori. The past isn't just present, it's fighting for the future. Then there's Cu Chulainn, the Hound of Ulster, whose rage in battle twisted his body into something monstrous, a trope that feels ripped from a modern comic book. His warp spasm, a berserker fury that made him unrecognizable, mirrors the Hulk's transformations or Wolverine's berserker rages. But here's the twist: Celtic heroes paid for their power. Cu Chulainn's triumphs left him drained, his mortality untouched by glory. Compare that to Tony Stark's PTSD in Iron Man 3, or Thor's self-doubt in Endgame. The ancients understood what we're only now admitting: heroism scars the soul. No figure looms larger in the Celtic twilight than the Morrigan, the crow goddess who reveled in battle's chaos. She's the original femme fatale, seductive one moment, terrifying the next. From Game of Thrones' Melisandre to The Witcher's Yennefer, her DNA is everywhere. But the Morrigan wasn't just a harbinger of doom. She chose who would live or die, a power modern fiction often gives to morally ambiguous women like The Hunger Games' President Coin or Mad Max Fury Road's Furiosa. Even her shape-shifting, appearing as a crow, a wolf, a crone, finds its way into characters like Mystique or American God's Bilquis. The Celts didn't fear strong women, they carved their stories in stone. And what of Samhain, the festival where the veil between worlds grew thin? The bonfires that once warded off spirits are now jack-o'-lanterns, but the magic remains. Hollywood can't resist retelling Samhain's eerie allure, from The Wicker Man to Trick or Treat. Yet the holiday's roots go deeper. It was a time to settle debts, honor the dead, and acknowledge life's cyclical nature, a far cry from today's candy frenzy, but proof that even our lightest traditions carry ancient shadows. Now, let's cross from the misty moors of Celtic lore to the sun-drenched epics of India, where gods dance the universe into being and demons wield boons like nuclear codes. If you think superhero battles are epic now, wait until you hear how the Mahabharata's wars make in-game look like a skirmish. India's epics don't just tell stories, they unravel the universe. Take the Mahabharata, a saga so vast it makes Game of Thrones seem like a footnote. At its heart lies a single moment, the warrior Arjuna frozen on the battlefield, his bow trembling as he faces his own kin. Enter Krishna, whose cosmic counsel in the Bhagavad Gita isn't just ancient philosophy, it's a mirror for every modern soul torn between duty and desire. When Oppenheimer quoted the Gita after the atomic bomb, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds," he proved these words could span millennia, from chariots to nuclear fire. The Gita's lessons on detachment and purpose fuel Silicon Valley execs and mindfulness apps alike, proving that the search for meaning never goes out of style. But the Mahabharata's genius lies in its moral gray zones. Duryodhana isn't just a villain, he's a prince cheated of his birthright. Karna, born a warrior but raised a charioteer, embodies the ache of societal exclusion, a theme that resonates in everything from Parasite to debates over class inequality. Even the epic's women, like Draupadi, who humbles her abusers with sheer wit, feel ripped from today's feminist retellings. Bollywood knows this power well. Films like Draupadi reimagine her as a symbol of resistance, while modern series like Dharmakshetra cast the epic's characters in a courtroom drama, asking, what if the gods were put on trial? Then there's the Ramayana, India's other monumental epic. Its hero, Rama, seems straightforward until you spot the cracks. His exile tests his ideals. His doubt over Sita's purity sparks debates that still rage in Indian courts and living rooms. Yet this story didn't stop at borders. Thailand's Ramakian turns Rama into a divine king. Indonesia's Wayang Kulit shadow puppets dance with his tail, and Cambodia's Angkor Wat carves his battles into temple walls. The Ramayana isn't just literature, it's a cultural bridge carried by merchants and monks across oceans and eras. Bollywood's magic lies in making these epics breathe anew. Bahubali's war scenes owe their grandeur to the Mahabharata's descriptions. Devdas echoes the tragic love of Radha and Krishna. Even RRR, with its explosive action, taps into that ancient tension between loyalty and rebellion. These aren't just adaptations, they're conversations, proving that Rama's arrows and Draupadi's defiance still hit their mark. Now, prepare to cross the Himalayas, where Chinese myths await, a world of shape-shifting foxes, monkey kings who defy heaven, and celestial bureaucracies so intricate they'd stump even the gods of Olympus. In the West, dragons breathe fire and hoard gold monsters to be slain by knights, but cross into Chinese myth and the dragon transforms. Here, they dance in rain clouds, symbols of imperial power and cosmic harmony. Disney's Mulan captures this perfectly. The great stone dragon isn't a foe but a guardian. His absence from battle, a sly nod to Eastern philosophy. True strength lies in wisdom, not claws. This contrast shapes global storytelling, where Game of Thrones pits Daenerys against her dragons as weapons. Chinese legends like the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas show them as rulers of rivers and seasons, their movements balancing the natural world. Even today, Lunar New Year parades feature undulating dragon puppets, their sinuous bodies embodying the flow of Kai, that vital energy threading through everything from acupuncture clinics to corporate team-building retreats. That balance between forces seen and unseen lies at the heart of yin and yang, a concept now plastered on yoga mats and wellness blogs worldwide. but its roots run deep. Ancient Chinese myths spoke of Pangu, the giant whose body became the world, his breath the wind, his veins rivers, his sweat the rain. His sacrifice mirrored yin and yang's dance, chaos and order, darkness and light forever intertwined. Modern apps might reduce it to a sleep tracker logo, but the original idea was cosmic. The I Ching, or Book of Changes, used yin and yang to map everything from harvests to heartbreak, proving that duality wasn't just philosophy, it was a survival guide. No character embodies this playful balance like the Monkey King, Sun Wukong. Born from stone, wielding a staff that could part oceans, he's the ultimate trickster, part hero, part menace. His journey in Journey to the West, a tale as foundational as the Odyssey, pits him against heaven itself, outwitting gods with sheer audacity. Fast forward to today, and you'll spot his DNA in anime like Dragon Ball. Goku's tail and staff are direct homages, and Netflix's The New Legends of Monkey. But here's the twist, his arc isn't about conquering evil, it's about mastering himself. By tale's end, the rebel becomes an enlightened guardian, a lesson echoed in every coming-of-age story from Naruto to Mona. Then there's Feng Shui, the art of arranging spaces to harmonize with energy flow. What began as ancient tomb placement rituals ensuring ancestors rested peacefully, now dictates Manhattan penthouse layouts. High-end architects hire Feng Shui masters to angle desks and doors, while apps promise to balance your Kai with virtual furniture swaps, but beneath the trend lies mythic bedrock. The Lo Shu Square, a 9-part grid linked to turtle shell divination, still influences compass placements today. It's a reminder that modern design's obsession with flow and energy isn't new. It's a revival of stories told by riverbank diviners 3,000 years ago. From dragon parades to meditation apps, these myths didn't just survive, they shape how we seek balance in a fractured world. And as we journey from China's celestial bureaucracies to the firelit circles of African griots, prepare to discover how oral traditions turned memory into myth and elders into living libraries. While Chinese myths flowed from imperial courts and sacred texts, Africa's stories lived in the air, passed mouth to ear under baobab trees, where griots wove history into rhythm and rhyme. At the center of this living tapestry stands Anansi, the spider trickster whose cunning threads stretch across continents. Born in West Africa's Akan traditions, Anansi's tales sailed with the enslaved to the Caribbean, morphing into Biara Rabbit in the American South, and even inspiring Neil Gaiman's Anansi Boys. What makes this shape-shifter endure? Because Anansi isn't just a character, he's a survival manual. When he defeats a python not with strength but by tricking it into straightening out, or outsmarts a leopard by convincing it to tie itself to a tree, he mirrors the resilience of marginalized people worldwide. Today, his legacy thrives in Black storytelling, from children's books to Marvel's Spider-Man comics, where the hero's wit often triumphs over brute force. But Africa's oral traditions hold more than tricks, they map the cosmos itself. Take the Dogon people of Mali, whose ancient stories describe Sirius not as a single star but a binary system, centuries before telescopes confirmed it. How did they know? Some argue it was ancestral wisdom passed down through initiation rites. Others see echoes of contact with advanced cultures. Either way, their lore fuels sci-fi to this day, from Black Panther's Wakandan star maps to Octavia Butler's Dawn, where aliens share Dogon-like celestial knowledge. It's proof that myths aren't just stories, they're vessels for scientific curiosity waiting to be decoded. Then there's the power of proverbs, Africa's original TD talks. The Yoruba saying, "It takes a village to raise a child," shapes modern parenting guides. Swahili wisdom like, "Haroka haroka haina baraka," hurry hurry has no blessing, finds new life in corporate workshops about mindful productivity. Even Nelson Mandela wielded Xhosa proverbs as political tools, using Ubuntu, the idea that "I am because we are," to unite post-apartheid South Africa. These aren't quaint sayings, they're cognitive tools, compressing generations of insight into phrases that still guide billion-dollar decisions. And let's not forget the Griots, history's first podcasters. A Griot didn't just recite events, they performed them, weaving genealogies, battles, and moral lessons into hypnotic cadences backed by the chorus strings. Modern storytelling, from hip-hop's narrative lyricism to NPR's The Moth, owes them a debt. When Lin-Manuel Miranda researched Hamilton, he studied Griot techniques to make history feel alive. The Griot's role as both historian and hype man reveals a truth: the best stories don't just inform, they make your pulse race. Now, as we cross the Atlantic to Native American traditions, prepare to encounter a different kind of wisdom, one where coyotes howl creation into being and every river holds a spirit song. If the Norse had Loki and Africa had Anansi, the Native American traditions gave us Coyote, the ultimate shape-shifter, equal parts fool and philosopher. Coyote doesn't just break rules, he reveals them, teaching through chaos. In one Navajo tale, he steals fire from the gods, not for glory, but because the people are freezing. His methods are messy. He might trip over his own paws or get tricked by his schemes, but his stories carry a deeper lesson. Survival demands adaptability. Sound familiar? Modern ecologists call this resilience, the ability to bounce back from disaster. Coyote's antics, passed down for generations, mirror today's climate adaptation strategies, proving that ancient myths often hold the blueprints for modern survival. But the land itself speaks in these traditions. Petroglyphs, those cryptic symbols carved into canyon walls, aren't just art, they're libraries. The Hopi's migration petroglyphs in Arizona, for example, map clan journeys across centuries, while the Zuni's deer and rain symbols encode hunting rituals and weather wisdom. Scientists now study these carvings alongside tree ring data to reconstruct ancient climates, showing how oral and visual traditions preserved environmental knowledge long before satellites or spreadsheets. Even the act of carving held meaning. Striking stone was a prayer, a way to etch stories into the bones of the earth. Today's activists echo this when they say, "Listen to the land," a call that feels both urgent and ancient. At the heart of many native teachings sits the Great Spirit, a force woven through all life. Unlike distant Olympus gods, this spirit lives in rivers, storms, and cornfields. Modern sustainability movements unknowingly channel this idea when they speak of interconnectedness or circular economies. The Lakota phrase, "Mitakui Oyasin," all my relations, isn't poetry. It's a worldview where harming the earth means harming oneself. Companies like Patagonia, which grants rivers legal rights, or indigenous-led campaigns to halt pipelines, aren't just protests. They're the latest verses in an old, ongoing story about balance. Then there's Pocahontas, whose real history clashes sharply with Disney's fantasy. The real Matoka, her birth name, wasn't a love-struck teenager saving John Smith. She was a diplomat, a translator, and eventually a prisoner taken to England as a political pawn. Her life, erased by myth, reflects a broader pattern: how dominant cultures rewrite indigenous stories to fit their own narratives. Yet even here, resistance thrives. Contemporary Powhatan scholars and filmmakers are reclaiming her story, much like Maori directors reimagined Mona's voyage, not as escapism, but as reclamation. Now, as we turn toward the Pacific, prepare to meet navigators who read stars like roadmaps and demigods who pulled islands from the sea. Their legends don't just belong to the past, they're guiding voyages into the future. Long before compasses or satellites, the people of the Pacific Ocean were mastering the art of wayfinding, reading waves, winds, and stars like pages in a celestial atlas. At the heart of these legends stands Maui, the demigod whose exploits stretch from Hawaii to Aotearoa. Disney's Mona captured his larger-than-life spirit, the cheeky hero who lassoed the sun to slow its march across the sky. But the real magic lies in how these myths encode survival skills. Maui's fishing up islands isn't just fantasy. It's a metaphor for the way Polynesian voyagers discovered new lands, turning the vast unknown into a map of possibilities. When Mona sings, "We know the way," she's channeling centuries of ancestral knowledge, the same wisdom that guided double-hulled canoes across thousands of miles of open ocean without a single modern tool. This wasn't guesswork, it was science woven into story. Navigators memorized the rising and setting positions of over 200 stars, their paths as familiar as highway signs. They could detect distant islands by the way clouds bunched above them or by the flight patterns of seabirds. The T-Lopa, or underwater lightning, a phenomenon where light flickers beneath waves near land, acted as nature's GPS. Modern sailors have tested these techniques, like the Hokulea, a replica voyaging canoe that sailed from Hawaii to Tahiti in 1976 using only traditional methods. The result, a route so precise it shocked oceanographers. These weren't just explorers, they were astronomers, ecologists, and physicists wrapped into one, their myths serving as living textbooks. Then there's the power of the Oli, or creation chants oral maps that preserved more than just directions. The Kumulipo, a Hawaiian chant tracing life's origins from darkness to coral to humans, isn't just poetry. It's a genealogical record, linking people to the land and sea in an unbroken chain. When activists today protest telescope construction on Mauna Kea, they invoke these chants, reminding the world that the mountain isn't just a summit, it's an ancestor. The same chants that guided canoes now fuel movements to protect sacred spaces, proving that identity isn't written in ink but carried on breath. And what of the tattoos that adorned these voyagers? Every swirl and dot in Polynesian, tatau, told a story: a shark's tooth for protection, ocean waves for navigation, a spearhead for courage. These weren't decorations, they were resumes in ink, declaring a person's skills, lineage, and even spiritual guardians. Fast forward to today, and you'll see their influence everywhere, from Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's Samoan sleeve tattoos to the resurgence of traditional hand-tapping techniques in studios worldwide. But the deeper connection remains. Just as ancient tattoos marked rites of passage, modern ink often commemorates personal journeys, a bridge between past and present etched in skin. Now, as we prepare to leave the Pacific's horizon for the misty castles of Camelot, remember this: Arthur's knights sought a holy grail, but Polynesian voyagers carried their own sacred vessels, canoes that held not just bodies, but the soul of a culture. And if you think their feats were legendary, wait until you hear how a Welsh warlord's myth became the blueprint for every hero's journey. Few legends have shaped modern storytelling like the tales of King Arthur, where swords gleam with destiny and wizards whisper prophecies. Take Excalibur, the blade pulled from stone. It wasn't just a weapon, it was a test of character, proving Arthur's worthiness to rule. That moment echoes in everything from The Sword in the Stone to Game of Thrones, where Jon Snow's Longclaw or Aragorn's reforged Narsil carry the same weight. But Excalibur's true legacy isn't in its edge. It's in the idea that leadership isn't inherited, it's earned. When CEOs talk about pulling the sword from the stone to describe rising through merit, or activists invoke Arthur's humility to challenge corrupt rulers, they're tapping into a myth that refuses to fade. Then there's Merlin, the archetype of every wise, eccentric mentor who's ever trained a hero. Gandalf's fireworks in The Lord of the Rings, pure Merlin. Dumbledore's twinkling eyes and cryptic advice, straight from Camelot's playbook. Even Obi-Wan Kenobi, with his flowing robes and penchant for riddles, owes a debt to the original wizard. But Merlin's tragedy, his foresight couldn't save Arthur from fate, adds depth modern adaptations often mimic. Think of Professor X's failed attempts to shield the X-Men, or Dr. Strange's grim calculus in Infinity War. The lesson, wisdom doesn't guarantee victory, and that tension keeps audiences hooked. Love triangles, too, got a blueprint from Guinevere's torn heart. Her affair with Lancelot wasn't just scandal, it was a collision of duty and desire that's fueled dramas for centuries. Tristan and Isolde, Twilight's Bella Edward, Jacob dynamic, even The Hunger Games, Katniss Petergale dilemma all trace back to Camelot's queen. But here's the twist, Guinevere wasn't a passive prize. Medieval romances like Création de Troyes, Lancelot, gave her agency, painting her as a woman navigating impossible choices. Modern retellings from Marion Zimmer Bradley's The Mists of Avalon to Netflix's Cursed amplify this, asking, what if her story wasn't about men's battles but her own? Camelot's shimmering ideals, though, might be its most enduring export. Politicians from JFK to Biden have invoked it as shorthand for unity and hope, a brief, shining moment to aspire to. Activists wield it too. The LGBTQ+ community reclaims Arthur's round table as a symbol of equality, while social justice movements frame their missions as quests for a new Camelot. Yet the myth's brilliance lies in its fragility. Arthur's kingdom crumbled, reminding us that utopias demand constant vigilance. From Watchmen's fallen heroes to The West Wing's idealized presidency, storytellers keep wrestling with Camelot's central question, can perfection ever last? And just as Merlin transformed others' lust into Arthur's birth, alchemy would later spin base metals into gold, but that's a magic of another kind. Alchemy wasn't just about turning lead into gold, it was the original quest for transformation, a secret language of symbols that still whispers to us today. Take the Philosopher's Stone, that legendary substance promising eternal life and limitless wealth. J.K. Rowling didn't just borrow its name for Harry Potter, she tapped into its deeper magic. In her world, the stone isn't merely an object, it's a test of character. Only those who want to find it but not use it, like Harry and Dumbledore, can possess its power. That's pure alchemical wisdom, mirroring the ancient belief that true transformation begins within. Even Nicholas Flamel, the historical alchemist Rowling wove into her tale, spent centuries chasing the stone's secrets, proving how myths blur the lines between history and fantasy. But what if the stone was never meant to be physical at all? Carl Jung, the pioneering psychologist, saw alchemy as a map of the human psyche. To him, the great work of turning base metals into gold symbolized our own journey toward wholeness, the shadow and light merging, the chaos of the unconscious refined into the gold of self-awareness. Jung's patients dreamed of alchemical symbols long before they'd ever read about them, suggesting these images live in our collective subconscious. Modern therapy echoes this when we speak of inner alchemy, or transmuting pain into wisdom. We're using the same metaphors medieval adepts scratched into parchment. Look around and you'll spot alchemy's fingerprints in plain sight. That serpent eating its own tail on medical logos, that's the Ouroboros, an alchemical emblem of infinity and cyclical renewal. Tech companies use it to symbolize endless innovation, while eco-movements adopt it for sustainability. Even the recycling symbol owes a debt. Alchemists were the original upcyclers, believing nothing in nature was truly wasted. And let's not forget the lab-coated pioneers who built modern chemistry on alchemy's foundations. Isaac Newton scribbled more about alchemy than physics. Robert Boyle, father of modern chemistry, sought the philosopher's stone while defining the scientific method. Their crucibles and alembics evolved into today's beakers and Bunsen burners, their cryptic recipes paving the way for periodic tables. The next time you pop an aspirin, thank Paracelsus, the rogue alchemist who insisted medicines could be mined from plants, not just prayers. Now, prepare to venture beyond the lab into the trance dances of shamans, where firelight flickers on cave walls and visions blur the boundaries between worlds. If alchemy was science wrestling with spirit, shamanism is where spirit dances with raw, unfiltered existence. Shamanic journeys aren't just ancient rituals, they're the original role-playing games. Siberian shamans, clad in reindeer hides and rattling bone charms, were the first healers to traverse spiritual realms, bargaining with spirits to mend the sick. Sound familiar? It should. The white-robed clerics of World of Warcraft, the potion-brewing alchemists of The Witcher, even the medics in Overwatch who channel healing energy, they all owe a debt to those Arctic mystics. Game designers didn't just borrow the aesthetics, they tapped into the archetype of the wounded healer, the figure who bridges worlds. When a shaman's drumbeat syncs with a player's heartbeat during a boss battle, it's not just gameplay, it's an echo of ceremonies older than written history. But the parallels go deeper. Modern psychedelic therapy, with its controlled doses of psilocybin or MDMA, mirrors the shaman's use of ayahuasca or fly agaric mushrooms. Indigenous healers in the Amazon have long known what science now confirms. These substances can dissolve trauma, rewire neural pathways, and offer visions that feel like reboots for the soul. Clinics from Johns Hopkins to Zurich now study how psychedelics treat depression, with patients reporting journeys eerily similar to shamanic descents, meeting spirit guides, confronting shadow selves, returning with renewed purpose. The difference: shamans framed these experiences as battles with demons, while therapists call it integration. Yet both agree, healing requires venturing into the unknown and returning transformed. Then there's the drum, the shaman's heartbeat, the pulse of the unseen world. Today, sound baths and binaural beats use rhythm to alter brainwaves, a practice rooted in Siberian and Mongolian traditions where steady drumming induces trances. Neuroscientists call it entrainment, the brain's tendency to sync with rhythmic stimuli, but you don't need a lab to feel its power. Close your eyes during a Navajo Yebichai chant, where masked dancers channel healing deities, and the repetitive cadence does something textbooks can't explain. It lifts the weight from your chest, as if the very air has become medicine. These traditions aren't relics, they're roadmaps. When a Navajo singer chants the Beauty Way prayer to restore harmony, or a Sami shaman's drum maps the cosmos with painted symbols, they're offering something our fractured modern world craves, a way to mend what's broken inside and out. And if you think these connections between past and present are profound, wait until we step into the footprints of civilizations so advanced, their ruins still baffle us, where stone circles align with stars and temples, hide mathematical codes we're only beginning to crack. Plato's tale of Atlantis isn't just a story, it's a riddle wrapped in a disaster, one that's haunted explorers and scientists for over 2,000 years. In his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, he describes a mighty civilization beyond the Pillars of Hercules, swallowed by the sea in a single catastrophic day and night. But here's the twist. Plato insisted Atlantis was real, a cautionary tale of hubris punished by the gods. Modern researchers have scoured his clues like a treasure map, with one leading theory pointing to the volcanic island of Thera, modern-day Santorini. Around 1600 BCE, Thera erupted with a force 50 times greater than Krakatoa, triggering tsunamis that may have devastated nearby Crete and inspired legends of a drowned kingdom. The Minoan frescoes of Akrotiri, frozen in ash, show a sophisticated culture eerily matching Plato's description: bull-leaping athletes, labyrinthine palaces, and advanced engineering. But was this Atlantis, or did Plato stitch together half-remembered disasters? Thera's fury, Troy's fall into a moral fable? The debate rages on with every new underwater discovery, from submerged ruins off the coast of Spain to bizarre geometric shapes near the Azores, reigniting the hunt. Then there's Lemuria, the phantom continent born not from ancient texts but from Victorian science. In the 1860s, zoologists puzzled over lemur fossils in India and Madagascar, proposing a land bridge swallowed by the Indian Ocean. Geologists scoffed until continental drift theory proved Earth's plates do dance. Though Lemuria was debunked as a literal landmass, its legacy lingers. The myth morphed into New Age lore, a utopian homeland for psychic beings, its name adopted by crystal shops and spiritual retreats. Madame Blavatsky, founder of Theosophy, wove Lemuria into her cosmic history, claiming it birthed a race of egg-laying telepaths. Today, you'll find Lemurian seed crystals sold online, said to hold ancestral wisdom. It's a fascinating case of science spawning fiction, then fiction circling back to inspire fringe science, a feedback loop as old as storytelling itself. Underwater archaeologists walk a tightrope between myth and method. Take the Yonaguni Monument off Japan's coast, a sprawling, terraced structure some claim is Lemuria's remains, while others argue it's just oddly eroded bedrock. Then there's the Baltic Sea anomaly, a sonar blob resembling the Millennium Falcon, debated as a glacial deposit or a sunken UFO base. The truth, most of these mysteries crumble under scrutiny, but the search itself drives innovation. Advanced sonar mapping, submersible drones, and isotopic dating tools honed hunting Atlantis now help study real drowned landscapes like Doggerland, the North Sea's Stone Age realm. What's undeniable is the power these lost worlds hold over us. Atlantis isn't just a place, it's a mirror. For ecologists, it's a warning of climate collapse. For filmmakers, it's a playground of sunken splendors, from Disney's animated utopia to the alien city in Aquaman. And for dreamers, proof that beneath the waves or buried in desert sands, there's always another secret waiting. Speaking of secrets, few captivate like creatures that defy explanation: the cryptids lurking in forests, lakes, and the shadowy corners of folklore. But that's a tale for another moment, one with footprints too large to ignore. Long before Godzilla rose from the sea, the Mesopotamians feared the Mushassu, a dragon so fierce it guarded the gates of Babylon itself. With the body of a serpent, the claws of a lion, and the talons of an eagle, this ancient hybrid wasn't just a monster, it was a symbol of chaos barely contained by human order. Fast forward to 1954, when Japan's atomic nightmare birthed Godzilla, and the parallels click into place. Both creatures embody humanity's deepest fears. For the Babylonians, the Mushassu represented untamed nature, while Godzilla mirrored the terror of nuclear annihilation. Even their designs echo each other. Godzilla's dorsal plates mimic the Mushassu's serpentine scales, and both roar with the fury of civilizations powerless against forces they've unleashed. The lesson: monsters evolve, but their purpose remains the same: to give form to what haunts us most. Now, shift from scorching deserts to frozen peaks, where the Yeti's footprints vanish into the snow. This Himalayan phantom didn't emerge from thin air. Tibetan monasteries guarded Migoi relics alleged Yeti scalps centuries before Western explorers coined the abominable snowman. Similarly, North America's Bigfoot sprouted from indigenous legends like the Salish's Sasquatch, a forest guardian woven into tribal oral histories. What's fascinating isn't just their global cousinship, it's how these creatures adapt to their habitats. The Yeti, clad in white, thrives in high-altitude mystery, while Bigfoot's hulking, shadowy form blends into Pacific Northwest forests. Cryptids, it seems, wear the camouflage of their environments, reflecting local landscapes and the people who imagine them. Then there's the chupacabra, a blood-drinking nightmare that erupted in 1995 Puerto Rico before spreading across Latin America. Unlike ancient beasts, this one wore the face of modern panic. Reports described it as either a reptilian alien or a hairless, spine-backed dog. Scientists later debunked sightings as mange-ridden coyotes, but the chupacabra's staying power reveals something deeper. Its rise coincided with economic crises and fears of globalization, making it a perfect metaphor for cultural anxieties. When people feel drained financially, politically, or environmentally, monsters appear to literalize those fears. Dive beneath the waves and you'll find mermaid myths swimming through every ocean. The Assyrian goddess Atargates, who transformed into a fish out of shame, shares DNA with Hans Christian Andersen's tragic Little Mermaid. But today, these legends are resurfacing in unexpected ways. Marine biologists use mermaid lore to promote ocean conservation. After all, who better to plead for coral reefs than the mythical guardians of the deep? Fishermen in the Philippines even report sirena sightings near endangered dugong habitats, blurring the line between folklore and ecological activism. As these creatures show, myths never truly vanish, they shapeshift, embedding themselves in new fears, new frontiers. And if you think Earth's mysteries are vast, wait until we turn our gaze upward, where ancient astronomers traced gods and beasts in the stars. The stars have always been more than just points of light. They're the canvas of our oldest stories, guiding explorers both ancient and modern. Take Orion, that mighty hunter striding across the winter sky. To the Greeks, his belt was a marker of heroic destiny, but fast forward to the 20th century, and NASA Orion spacecraft carries that legacy into the cosmos. This isn't just a poetic nod, it's a reminder that the same constellation guiding Odysseus home now helps navigate spacecraft beyond the moon. The Artemis program, named after Apollo's twin sister, even plans to land the first woman on the lunar surface, weaving gender equality into a myth that once celebrated only male heroes. The stars haven't changed, but how we read them and who gets to journey among them has transformed entirely. Centuries before telescopes, the Maya tracked Venus with jaw-dropping precision, carving its cycles into stone calendars that predicted eclipses down to the hour. Their Dresden Codex, a bark paper book surviving centuries of humidity and conquest, contains tables so accurate they rival modern astronomy apps. Why such obsession with a single planet? Because to the Maya, Venus wasn't just a celestial body, it was Kukulkan, the feathered serpent whose movements dictated war, harvest, and royal coronations. Today, archaeologists use these same tables to decode temple alignments, like the pyramid at Chichen Itzá, where the equinox sun casts a serpent's shadow slithering down the steps. The Maya didn't just observe the cosmos, they wove it into the fabric of daily life, a practice echoing in modern space agencies' quest to make interstellar travel as routine as a morning commute. Elon Musk's SpaceX, meanwhile, plucks names straight from mythology's pages. The Falcon rockets, named after Han Solo's ship, yes, but trace that lineage back and you'll find the Egyptian god Horus, depicted as a falcon soaring across the sun. Then there's Starship, a vessel meant to ferry humans to Mars, a nod to the countless mythic arcs, from Noah's flood survivor to the Polynesian canoe homes of ancestral voyagers. Even the Dragon capsule, with its sleek, heat-shielded curves, resurrects the fire-breathing beasts of old, now tamed to deliver cargo instead of chaos. These aren't arbitrary choices, they're modern incantations using names heavy with history to conjure success in an unforgiving void. Science fiction, too, drinks deeply from cosmic creation myths. Star Wars didn't just invent the Force, it repackaged Taoist balance and Arthurian legend for the space age. Dunes, sandworms owe their mystique to Mesopotamian Tiamat, the dragon of primordial waters, while Interstellar's black hole Gargantua shares a name with a giant from Rabelais' tales. Even the Marvel Universe's celestials, those towering cosmic judges, mirror the Gnostic demiurges of ancient mystic texts, beings who shaped reality with a thought. The best sci-fi doesn't just imagine futures, it remixes humanity's oldest questions. Where did we come from? Who watches over us? What happens when we reach beyond the sky? And as we prepare to shift from star maps to sacred shapes, from constellations to the geometries that underpin temples and atoms alike, remember this. The universe's blueprint has always been a blend of myth and math, story and science, the measurable and the mystical. The next chapter doesn't just decode patterns, it reveals how a single curve repeated across millennia might connect Stonehenge to quantum physics. From the spiraling arms of galaxies to the curve of a seashell, nature hides a mathematical secret, the Fibonacci sequence, a pattern where each number is the sum of the two before it. This same sequence appears in the Parthenon's columns, the Great Pyramid's proportions, and even the Hindu temple of Angkor Wat, where lotus petals unfold in perfect Fibonacci spirals. Architects didn't just stumble upon this pattern, they encoded it deliberately, believing it mirrored the divine order of the universe. Fast forward to today, and you'll find the Fibonacci spiral guiding everything from smartphone designs to stock market algorithms, proving that ancient ideas about harmony still shape our world. Then there's the Vesica Piscis, that almond-shaped intersection of two circles revered by the Pythagoreans as the womb of creation. Medieval Christian artists placed Christ within its curves in sacred icons, symbolizing the intersection of heaven and earth. But glance at modern logos from MasterCard's overlapping rings to the Bluetooth symbol's Nordic runes, and you'll spot the same geometry. Even sports brands like Nike's swoosh subtly echo its flowing lines, tapping into a shape that's subconsciously associated with unity and balance. The Vesica Piscis isn't just art, it's a silent language of connection, bridging sacred and corporate worlds. Pyramids, too, hold more than meets the eye. Beyond their imposing silhouettes, theorists suggest their angles harness unseen energies. The Great Pyramid's base aligns with true north within a fraction of a degree, while its chambers resonate at frequencies some claim amplify spiritual focus. Though scientists debate these claims, the pyramid's influence is undeniable, from Las Vegas's Luxor Hotel, with its light beam piercing the sky, to modern, pyramid power meditation pods sold in wellness stores. Whether myth or physics, the pyramid's allure persists, a testament to humanity's longing to touch the intangible. Mandalas, those intricate circular designs from Hindu and Buddhist traditions, once served as meditation tools, guiding monks to enlightenment through symmetrical repetition. Now they've found new life in digital form. Mindfulness apps like Headspace use mandala animations to calm restless minds, while adult coloring books tout them as stress relievers. Psychologists note their concentric patterns activate the brain's default mode network, the same zone lit up during deep meditation. What ancient monks knew instinctively, neuroscience now confirms: geometry can quiet chaos, turning scribbles into serenity. As these patterns show, sacred geometry isn't confined to dusty manuscripts. It pulses through our daily lives, a hidden rhythm beneath the noise. And if shapes can channel such power, imagine what happens when they're set in motion through ritual, where every line and curve becomes a doorway to the unseen. Ancient rituals never truly vanish. They simply change costumes. Take the Eleusinian mysteries, Greece's most sacred rites, where initiates drank a psychedelic brew and emerged forever altered by visions of the afterlife. Fast forward to today, and you'll find a similar hunger for transformation in the hushed halls of TD Talks. Audiences don't just listen, they lean in, craving that electric moment when a speaker's words flip a switch in their mind. Parallels are uncanny. Both rituals promise revelation, both unfold in carefully staged spaces, and both send participants back into the world feeling reborn. Even the ingredients align, where Eleusis offered kykeon, a potion of barley and mint. Modern self-help gurus peddle adaptogenic lattes and microdosed elixirs. The packaging changes, but the human longing for transcendence remains timeless. Weddings, too, are tapestries woven from ancient threads, the white dress. A nod to Roman brides who wore the color to invoke Vesta, goddess of hearth and home. The bouquet toss, a sanitized version of medieval Europe's scramble for fertility charms. Even the phrase, tying the knot, harks back to Celtic handfasting ceremonies, where cords bound couples' wrists as a symbol of intertwined fates. These traditions aren't just sentimental holdovers, they're proof that love and commitment crave ritual, whether it's a pagan priestess blessing a union or a DJ counting down the first dance. The most modern weddings still whisper with the echoes of bonfires and drum circles, whether the couple realizes it or not. Now turn your gaze to the solstice. Once marked by Stonehenge's druids with chants and fire, the longest night of the year has been rebranded for the age of hashtags and hig. Wellness retreats from Norway to Sedona host yin yoga under the stars, while influencers peddle solstice journals for intention setting. But strip away the Instagrammable veneer, and you'll find the same primal urge to sync our rhythms with the cosmos, to honor darkness before welcoming light. When a Brooklyn rooftop party pauses to watch the sunset align with the Manhattan grid, they're replicating the same awe that once flooded Mayan astronomers observing the sun's descent into El Castillo's shadow. Then there's the Japanese tea ceremony, where every whisk of matcha is a meditation in motion. Silicon Valley CEOs now study these rituals, not for the caffeine, but for the lesson in presence. A single bowl of tea demands undivided attention, the exact antithesis of our multitasking madness. Apps like Calm and Headspace try to bottle this focus with digital tea breaks, but the original practice needs no upgrades. When a Kyoto master pours water in precise arcs, he's enacting a 600-year-old mindfulness hack, one that quiets the mind by choreographing the hands. And if rituals can bridge centuries, imagine what happens when mythical creatures step out of the shadows, not as bedtime stories, but as mirrors for our modern obsessions. But that's a tale best told with claws, wings, and a hint of magic. Griffins have guarded treasures since the dawn of civilization, their lion's body and eagle's wings fusing the might of land and sky. Persian artists carved them into palace walls as protectors of gold, while Greek writers like Herodotus claimed they hoarded gems in the mountains of Scythia. Fast forward to the wizarding world, and their role hasn't changed. Harry Potter's Gringotts Bank deploys them as living security systems, their talons gripping vault doors shut. But here's the twist: griffins weren't just fantasy. Medieval travelers like Marco Polo swore they'd seen them in the wilds of Central Asia, likely spotting the fossilized bones of Protoceratops, a dinosaur whose beak and four-legged stance eerily matched the myth. It's a reminder that legends often begin with a kernel of truth, distorted by time and imagination into something extraordinary. Unicorns, meanwhile, have galloped from medieval tapestries to Silicon Valley boardrooms. In the Middle Ages, their horns, often narwhal tusks sold as alicorns, were powdered into potions to neutralize poison, a belief so widespread that kings sipped from unicorn goblet replicas to avoid assassination. Today, that same aura of purity and rarity fuels startup culture. Tech founders chase unicorn status, a term coined in 2013 for companies valued over $1 billion, implying they're as mythical as the creatures themselves. The horns spiral even inspired corporate logos, from Starbucks Mermaid adjacent designs to wellness brands peddling crystal-infused water. But the unicorn's true magic lies in its adaptability, a symbol of chastity in one era, a badge of disruptive innovation in the next, yet always representing the elusive and the extraordinary. Dragons, though, are the ultimate shape-shifters. Norse sagas painted Fafnir as a greedy dwarf transformed into a wingless, venomous worm, his horde cursed by Loki's gold. Contrast that with the winged, fire-breathing behemoths of Game of Thrones, where Daenerys' dragons are nuclear metaphors, living weapons of mass destruction. Eastern traditions offer yet another lens. Chinese long dragons, wingless and serpentine, control rains and rivers as celestial bureaucrats. Their evolution isn't random, it reflects cultural fears. European dragons, often slain by saints or knights, embody chaos to be conquered. Asian dragons, revered and offered incense, represent natural forces to be appeased. Modern storytellers exploit this duality. Smaug's greed in The Hobbit mirrors corporate excess, while How to Train Your Dragon reimagines them as misunderstood allies. The lesson: dragons don't just breathe fire, they mirror whatever we fear or need most. Then there's the phoenix, the fiery rebel of rebirth. Ancient Egyptians linked it to the sun god Ra, rising anew each dawn. Rome adopted it as a symbol of eternal empire, minting it on coins. Today, life coaches and corporate retreats invoke the phoenix as a metaphor for resilience. Burned-out employees rise from the ashes through mindfulness seminars, while disaster recovery plans are branded with phoenix imagery. Even pop culture leans in. Fawkes in Harry Potter isn't just a pet, he's a narrative device, saving Harry with tears that heal and feathers that anchor wands. The phoenix's secret: it doesn't just endure destruction, it requires it, teaching us that growth often demands letting the old burn away. These creatures aren't just relics, they're mirrors, reflecting our changing world while retaining their ancient cores. And if mythical beasts can shape our dreams and fears, wait until you see the power of the objects they guard: swords that choose kings, cups that grant eternal life, and stones that whisper secrets. The artifacts of legend don't just belong in museums, they're hiding in plain sight, their stories etched into everything from corporate logos to space probes. The Ark of the Covenant isn't just a biblical relic, it's a treasure that's fueled both faith and frenzy for centuries. When Indiana Jones raced Nazis to recover it in Raiders of the Lost Ark, he was stepping into a real-world mystery that's obsessed historians and adventurers alike. Described in Exodus as a gold-clad chest holding the Ten Commandments, the Ark was said to wield divine power, striking down those who dared misuse it. Fast forward to the 1980s, and you've got archaeologists like Ron Wyatt claiming to have found its resting place beneath Jerusalem, while Ethiopian tradition insists it's been guarded in Axum for millennia. The truth nobody knows, but the allure is undeniable. From Freemason symbols to military insignia, the Ark's iconography pops up in places far removed from its origins, a testament to its enduring grip on the imagination. Then there's the Holy Grail, the cup of Christ that's inspired quests from King Arthur's knights to Dan Brown's, the Da Vinci Code. Medieval romances like Création de Troyes, Percival, painted it as a mystical vessel with healing powers, while conspiracy theorists argue it's everything from a bloodline secret to an alien artifact. The Grail's genius lies in its ambiguity. It's a blank slate for whatever a culture craves. For some, it's spiritual enlightenment, for others, literal treasure. Even Hitler's SS hunted for it, convinced it held occult power. Today, you'll find Grail motifs in everything from Monty Python's satire to wellness retreats promising your personal Grail journey. The lesson: the Grail isn't about finding an object, it's about the search itself, the human itch to uncover meaning hidden just out of reach. Excalibur's legend, meanwhile, has jumped from parchment to pop culture, and even into hobbyists' backyards. Metal-detecting enthusiasts from England to New England sweep fields with Arthurian dreams, hoping to unearth a sword in the stone. While no one's found the real deal yet, the myth's influence is everywhere. Final Fantasy games feature legendary blades like Excalibur Roman II, while historical reenactors forge replicas with painstaking accuracy. The sword's symbolism, authority, destiny, moral purity resonates so deeply that even courts of law use Excalibur as shorthand for unimpeachable evidence. It's a reminder that some artifacts transcend their origins, becoming cultural shorthand for ideals we're still chasing. But no artifact hunt has burned brighter or destroyed more lives than the quest for El Dorado. Spanish conquistadors gutted South America searching for this golden man, a ruler said to coat himself in gold dust. The reality: El Dorado was likely a Muisca ritual at Lake Guatavita, where chiefs tossed gold offerings into the water. That didn't stop centuries of expeditions, though. Sir Walter Raleigh lost his son and his fortune chasing the myth, while modern treasure hunters still dredge the lake with backhoes. The twist: El Dorado's true legacy isn't gold, it's cautionary. It's a parable about greed, cultural misunderstanding, and the cost of obsession. Video games like Uncharted and films like The Road to El Dorado keep the legend alive, but they also ask, what if the treasure was never the point? From Ark hunters to Grail seekers, these chases reveal less about the artifacts themselves and more about us, our hunger for the divine, our need for heroes, and our willingness to risk everything for a story. And if these objects hold such power, imagine the figures who wielded them, which brings us to the women of myth, not just companions or prizes, but shapers of destiny in their own right. From goddesses who commanded the heavens to mortal queens who defied empires, their stories are the next chapter in this tapestry of wonder. Athena wasn't just the goddess of wisdom, she was ancient Greece's original CEO, a strategist who outmaneuvered gods and mortals alike with sheer intellect. Today, her legacy thrives in female leadership programs like the Athena Alliance, where executives channel her tactical brilliance to shatter glass ceilings. When a Fortune 500 company invokes Athena's name in diversity training, they're tapping into something deeper than mythology. They're reclaiming a narrative where women lead not by permission, but by innate authority. Modern retellings amplify this, from Madeline Miller's Circe, reframing Odysseus's journey through feminine eyes, to corporate workshops using the Athena Principle, a playbook for women to navigate boardrooms like the Parthenon, turning adversaries into allies with diplomacy rather than domination. Then there's Lilith, Adam's first wife in Jewish folklore, who refused to submit and fled Eden to rule the night as a demoness. Once vilified, she's now a feminist icon, her name emblazoned on protest signs and reproductive rights campaigns. Spotify playlists like Lilith's Daughters soundtrack her rebellion with artists like Florence plus the Machine, while indie comics reimagine her as a protector of outcasts. The irony, medieval rabbis spun her tale to warn against defiant women, but today her story fuels movements like #MeToo. When a TikTok hashtag #LilithLegacy goes viral, it's not about embracing monstrosity, it's about rewriting the script that labels autonomy as dangerous. Isis, the Egyptian goddess who resurrected her husband Osiris and birthed a dynasty, finds new life in maternal health initiatives. Midwives in Kenya weave her myth into childbirth education, framing labor as an act of divine reassembly, stitching pain into purpose. Neonatal wards in Brazil display Isis's winged embrace as a symbol of protection, while postpartum support groups invoke her mantra, "I am all that has been and is and shall be." Her influence stretches beyond medicine. Eco-feminists cite her as an early environmentalist, reassembling the Nile's fractured ecosystems like she did Osiris's body. Even Beyoncé's Black is King pays homage, draping herself in Isis's golden wings to celebrate Black motherhood's resilience. The triple goddess maiden, mother, crone, has moonlit its way from Celtic groves to modern manifesting rituals. Instagram altars feature her phases alongside lunar cycle journals, while wellness brands sell triple goddess teas blending herbs for each life stage. But her real power lies in reframing aging. Where pop culture once sidelined women past youth, the crone's resurgence in novels like The Once and Future Witches champions wisdom over wrinkles. Teen Wiccans carve her symbol into candles for exams, CEOs meditate on her phases to navigate career pivots, and menopause forums adopt her as a mascot for the croning rite of passage. These goddesses aren't just relics, they're revolutions in divine drag, each generation costuming them for its battles. And if their stories teach us anything, it's that mythic power never fades, it just awaits the next storyteller to wield it. Now prepare to meet the chaos agents of the Pantheon, the tricksters whose laughter cracks open worlds too rigid to survive intact. Tricksters don't just break rules, they reveal how fragile those rules really were all along. Take Loki, the Norse god of mischief, whose pranks spark catastrophes and cosmic resets in equal measure. His modern counterpart isn't hiding in a cave or a comic book, he's lurking in the comment sections of TikTok, where chaos spreads faster than divine fire. Viral challenges, deepfake memes, even algorithmic glitches that send stock markets spiraling. These are Loki's playground now. When a single tweet can topple empires or birth new slang overnight, it's proof that trickster energy didn't fade with the Vikings, it just upgraded its tools. The same god who turned into a salmon to evade capture would have thrived in an age of VPNs and burner accounts, where identity is as fluid as his shape-shifting schemes. Anansi, the spider trickster of West Africa, spins a different kind of web, one that mirrors the tangled networks of social media. His stories, where words are traps and every conversation hides a snare, feel eerily prophetic in the age of influencer scams and viral misinformation. Anansi doesn't conquer with strength. He wins by weaving narratives so sticky, his opponents ensnare themselves. Sound familiar? It's the same playbook used by conspiracy theorists and marketing gurus alike, turning threads into threads, whispers into trends. But here's the twist, Anansi's tales always end with a lesson. The Ashanti didn't just celebrate his cunning, they warned against arrogance, showing how the spider's own hubris often unraveled his plans. In a world where cancel culture can dismantle a reputation in hours, that moral hits harder than ever. Then there's Coyote, the Native American trickster whose failures teach as much as his triumphs. Silicon Valley could learn from his playbook. When startups boast about failing fast or pivoting, they're channeling Coyote's chaotic adaptability, the way he'd tumble off a cliff one day and invent firesticks the next. Crowdfunding scams, those are Coyote's old cons dressed in Patagonia vests, selling visions of grandeur without the follow-through, but the real wisdom lies in his resilience. Unlike Greek heroes burdened by tragic flaws, Coyote shrugs off disaster and limps forward, his antics reminding us that survival isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. Tech incubators preach, iterate or die, but Coyote's been living that mantra for millennia, turning every misstep into material for the next tale. Eris, the Greek goddess of discord, takes chaos to mythic heights. Her golden apple, inscribed "for the fairest," didn't just spark the Trojan War, it became the ultimate meme template. Today, her spirit thrives in online flame wars, where a single inflammatory post or apple can divide communities into factions. Gamergate review bombing campaigns, even the absurdity of pineapple on pizza, debates all carry Eris's fingerprints, but her genius lies in exposure. Just as her apple revealed the petty insecurities of Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite, modern discord peels back the veneer of our own systems, showing where power, vanity, and insecurity really lie. Troll farms might weaponize chaos, but Eris reminds us, the right kind of disruption can topple toxic hierarchies. These tricksters share a secret: they're the immune system of culture, testing its weak points so it can evolve. And if their chaos feels uncomfortably familiar now, wait until we face the myths that predicted our darkest futures, the apocalypses that weren't endings, but brutal new beginnings. Apocalyptic myths have always been humanity's way of wrestling with the unthinkable, and right now, they're more relevant than ever. Take Ragnarok, the Norse doomsday where gods and monsters clash in a final, fiery battle. At first glance, it's pure spectacle. The wolf Fenrir swallowing the sun, the serpent Jörmungandr poisoning the seas, the earth itself sinking beneath the waves. But look closer and you'll spot eerie parallels to our own climate crisis. The rising oceans, the poisoned ecosystems, the sense of a world unraveling, it's all there, wrapped in Viking poetry. Modern dystopian fiction, from Mad Max to The Hunger Games, follows the same blueprint: societies collapsing under the weight of their own excess, survivors scrambling in the ashes. The difference: Ragnarok ends with a rebirth, a green world rising from the water, 2 human survivors repopulating the earth. It's a reminder that even in the bleakest tales, there's room for renewal, a lesson climate activists echo when they insist it's not too late to change course. Then there's Noah's Ark, the ultimate disaster prep story. A flood wipes the slate clean, but a chosen few paired animals, a righteous family, get a second chance. Fast forward to today, and you'll find real-world arks hidden in the Arctic permafrost. The Svalbard Global Seed Vault, a concrete bunker buried in Norway's frozen mountains, safeguards millions of seed samples against apocalypse. Dubbed the Doomsday Vault, it's a modern twist on an ancient idea, preserving life's blueprint when everything else is lost. But the parallels don't stop there. Just as Noah's story warns of divine punishment for human corruption, today's scientists sound alarms about ecological tipping points. The myth's core message of survival hinges on foresight, and humility resonates in every IPCC report. The Hopi prophecy, meanwhile, offers a different lens. Their elders spoke of a time when the earth would grow sick from greed, when spiderwebs, interpreted now as power lines and digital networks, would crisscross the land. But the prophecy isn't all doom. It promises a turning point if humanity chooses balance over exploitation. This vision fuels eco-activism, from Standing Rock's water protectors to youth-led climate strikes. When protesters invoke the phrase, "We are the ones we've been waiting for," they're channeling the Hopis' call to action, not as passive victims of fate, but as active participants in rewriting the ending. And then there's the Phoenix, that radiant rebel of rebirth. From Egyptian sun temples to Harry Potter's fox, its cycle of fiery death and renewal has always symbolized resilience. Today, it's been adopted as a mascot for climate resilience projects. Coral restoration initiatives name themselves after the phoenix, their lab-grown polyps rising from bleached ruins. Urban planners designing sponge cities to absorb floods use the bird's imagery in blueprints, framing infrastructure as a living, evolving force. Even carbon capture startups brand their tech with phoenix logos, promising to pull life from the very emissions that threaten it. The myth's power lies in its insistence that destruction isn't the end, it's the raw material for what comes next. These stories aren't just relics, they're roadmaps. They teach us that apocalypses aren't singular events but cycles, and that every ending carries the seeds of a new beginning. And if myths can guide us through collapse, imagine what they can teach us about the heroes who rise from the ashes, figures who don't just endure chaos, but reshape it. Heroes have always walked among us, but the definition of heroism keeps evolving like a living myth. Take Beowulf, the ultimate strongman of Old English legend, whose claim to fame was ripping a monster's arm off bare-handed. His brute strength might have inspired warriors in mead halls, but today's leaders wield a different kind of power. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison, not breaking bars with his fists but dismantling apartheid with forgiveness and moral clarity. Where Beowulf's heroism was measured in slain beasts, Mandela's legacy is counted in rebuilt nations, proof that the strongest force isn't always muscle, but the courage to choose reconciliation over revenge. Yet both figures share a core trait, an unshakable commitment to their people. Beowulf died defending his kingdom from a dragon. Mandela walked free to unite a fractured one. The battlegrounds changed, but the call to serve remained. Then there's Odysseus, the original master of the pivot. His journey home from Troy wasn't just a voyage, it was a masterclass in adaptability, from tricking a cyclops with a fake name to navigating sirens' deadly songs. Fast forward to Silicon Valley, and you'll find his spirit in founders who turn obstacles into opportunities. Elon Musk's SpaceX, once ridiculed for aiming at Mars, now dominates spaceflight because it embraced failure as fuel. Airbnb's founders sold cereal boxes to fund their startup during the 2008 crash, a move as clever as Odysseus disguising his men as sheep to escape Polyphemus. The lesson: disruption isn't about raw power, it's about outthinking the status quo. Modern disruptors don't carry swords, they wield algorithms, viral campaigns, and sometimes, like Odysseus, a healthy dose of mischief. Joan of Arc's fiery vision, meanwhile, burns brighter than ever in social justice movements. A teenage peasant who heard divine voices, she rallied an army to crown a king and reclaim France. Today, her heirs are the young activists turning hashtags into history. Greta Thunberg's solo climate strike mirrored Joan's solitary conviction, both dismissed as naive until the world couldn't ignore them. Malala Yousafzai, shot for advocating girls' education, channeled Joan's unbreakable faith in a cause greater than herself. What unites them isn't armor or angelic messages, but the audacity to see a future others can't, and the grit to drag society toward it. Joan's legacy reminds us that heroism isn't about age, gender, or even survival. It's about lighting a torch that outlasts you. Even celebrity origin stories borrow from the hero's journey. Beyoncé's rise from Destiny's Child to global icon mirrors the monomyth, a call to adventure. Her solo debut, trials, public scandals, motherhood, and a return with newfound wisdom. Her Lemonade era of artistic and personal rebirth. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson didn't just pivot from wrestling to Hollywood. He rewrote his narrative, turning his underdog roots into a brand of resilience. These arcs resonate because they're ancient templates repackaged for the Instagram age. Fans don't just buy albums or movie tickets, they invest in modern myths where struggle begets triumph. So what ties these threads together? Whether facing dragons, boardrooms, or injustice, heroes ancient and modern share a refusal to accept the world as it is. They rewrite rules not with fists or swords, but with the weapons of their time: moral clarity, disruptive ideas, unshakable vision. And as we'll soon see, these aren't just stories, they're blueprints, urging us to find the heroism in our own journeys, however ordinary they may seem. Ancient myths are far more than dusty tales locked in history books. They're living blueprints, constantly reshaping our world in ways both obvious and invisible. Think about the last time you scrolled through Netflix, played a video game, or even walked past a corporate logo. Chances are you brushed against fragments of Gilgamesh's grief, Athena's cunning, or Maui's audacity without even realizing it. These stories aren't just entertainment, they're the operating system of human imagination, a shared code that transcends borders and centuries. When a tech startup names itself after a Norse god or a filmmaker reimagines the Ramayana as a space epic, they're not borrowing from the past, they're plugging into an ancient power grid of meaning. What makes these myths so endlessly adaptable? It's their ability to hold our deepest fears and highest aspirations in the same breath. The same flood narratives that once warned of divine wrath now frame climate change discussions. The hero's journey that guided Odysseus now structures everything from TED Talks to TikTok success stories. Even our modern obsessions, AI, genetic engineering, interstellar travel, are just new skins on old archetypes. Prometheus stole fire, we split atoms. Icarus flew too close to the sun. SpaceX pushes the limits of the atmosphere. The stories haven't changed, only the props have. But myths do something even more profound. They build bridges across time and culture. When a child in Tokyo watches Mona, they're dancing with Polynesian ancestors. When a gamer in Nairobi battles as the Egyptian god Anubis, they're stepping into a 3,000-year-old ritual. These connections matter now more than ever. In a world often fractured by politics and prejudice, shared stories remind us that a Babylonian mother rocking her child to sleep with tales of Ishtar isn't so different from a Parisian parent reading Harry Potter at bedtime. Our myths are the original social network linking humanity across millennia. Here's the challenge and the opportunity they offer us today. Every generation gets to reinterpret these stories, to wrestle with their truths and reinvent their lessons. So what myth will you rewrite for tomorrow's world? Will you reimagine Persephone's descent as a parable about mental health? Turn Coyote's tricks into a manifesto for ethical hacking? The next chapter of these eternal stories is yours to draft. Drop a comment below with the mythic figure or tale that resonates most with your life, whether it's a goddess, a trickster, or an unsung hero from your own cultural roots. Let's keep this conversation alive, and if you've enjoyed this journey through time's greatest stories, hit subscribe, because history's hidden narratives, they are just getting started.